Hello and welcome back to Shakespeare's Test Kitchen.
Episode 8. After taking a break to explore cocktails and mocktails with the Bard, we are back in the Test Kitchen.
In this episode, we will be exploring recipes associated with the Feast of Michaelmas.
Shakespeare mentions Michaelmas in 2 of his plays. The first comes in an exchange between the sweet, gullible, indentured servant Francis and Prince Hal in Henry IV, Part 1.
Francis works at the Boar's Head Tavern, where he is befriended / mercilessly teased by Prince Hal. How old art thou, Francis?
Let me see. By Michaelmas next I shall be...
And then he is interrupted.
Hey. In The Merry Wives of Windsor, the servant Peter Simple is asked about the location of a book by the rich but rather dim Abraham Slender. Why, how now, Simple? Where have you been? I must wait upon myself, must I? You have not the Book of Riddles about you, have you?
Book of Riddles? Why, did you not lend it to Alice Shortcake upon All Hallowmas last? A fortnight afore Michaelmas?
These seemingly innocuous lines are actually really interesting because they give us great insight into how people in Shakespeare's England measured time. Instead of citing a specific date within a particular month, significant events were measured by their relation to important holy days.
Now, this was a super convenient shorthand because during Shakespeare's time, everybody knew what, and more importantly, when Michaelmas was.
Michaelmas is celebrated on September 29th. Now, during Shakespeare's lifetime, England was still using the Julian calendar, so that date would have been equivalent to October 11th on our Georgian or improved calendar. Michaelmas translates to the festival of St. Michael, just as Christmas translates to the festival of Christ. So, who was St. Michael?
Michael is a figure in Abrahamic belief. He is the archangel that was credited with casting Satan out of heaven. Now, his battle cry was, "Who is like God?" Which, of course, was a rhetorical question. No one is like God. And that original question translates in the original Hebrew to Mikael.
The origin of Michaelmas can be traced to the early Middle Ages, when a basilica in Rome was dedicated to St. Michael on September 30th, and everybody had a big party to celebrate the night before. After that, September 29th became an official holiday in his honor.
Michaelmas was also aligned with ancient harvest festivals, signifying the end of summer and the beginning of autumn. In countries like England, this led to Michaelmas being designated as one of the quarter days.
As you've probably guessed, there were 4 quarter days in a calendar year, all taking place near the equinox or the solstice. Annunciation Day or Lady Day, March 25th, Midsummer, June 24th, Michaelmas, September 29th, and Christmas, December 25th.
I think we need to celebrate Lady Day. What can we make for Lady Day?
Quarter days weren't just religious. They were also days on which businessy things commenced or were concluded. Rent was due. Laws went into effect. University terms would begin or end, and seasonal employment would conclude or commence.
Enough with the businessy stuff. Let's get on with the feast. There are several traditional dishes served at Michaelmas. First is the bannock cake, which celebrates the end of the harvest. On the Hebrides Islands, bannock cakes, or strun, were made from the 3 main grains harvested there: barley, oats, and rye.
Blackberries are another traditional Michaelmas food, and they are eaten in remembrance of the biblical story of Michael casting Satan out of heaven. When Satan, who had taken the form of a serpent or dragon, was cast down to earth, he landed on a blackberry bush. The scratchy, pokey plant made him so angry that he spit and did other unpleasant things on it that we will not mention. The result being that you should never eat blackberries after Michaelmas. And in point of fact, Michaelmas is a very good cutoff date for blackberries because beyond that point, they can be a bit wormy.
The most famous Michaelmas dish, however, is the roast goose. The roast goose is so popular, in fact, that it has replaced St. Michael in many modern instances of the Michaelmas celebration, including the Nottingham Goose Fair in England and Goose Day, which is still observed in several counties in Pennsylvania. Now, one origin story of the roast goose centers on Shakespeare's patron, Queen Elizabeth I. It is said that Elizabeth was dining on goose when she learned of the defeat of the Spanish Armada and therefore resolved that she would
eat goose upon Michaelmas Day.
Another possible origin story is that tenants would present a goose to their landlords as a part of their quarterly payment for rent. Whatever the reason, it was said that eating a Michaelmas goose was supposed to bring good fortune, as evidenced by the pithy little saying,
"Eat a goose on Michaelmas Day, want not for money all the year."
Wow, that's really clever. It's not exactly Shakespeare, but I guess it'll do.
It gets to the point.
Our recipe tonight for roast goose comes from the book The Forme of Cury, which is Middle English for the method of cookery. The book, published by Samuel Pegg in 1780, contains a 14th century collection of medieval English recipes based on several surviving vellum manuscripts. The most famous manuscript is a scroll with a head note citing it as the work of the chief master cook of Richard II. Plus, there is an inscription stating that that particular manuscript was presented to Queen Elizabeth I in 1586.
Holy cow! It is thought to be one of the oldest surviving English cookery books, and this is very cool. It is the earliest one to mention olive oil, gourds, mace, and cloves.
It contains 196 recipes, including many foods that are no longer eaten in England, like whales and cranes and herons, seals and porpoises. Well, it's good to know where to turn if you need a good recipe for porpoise. But tonight, we are celebrating Michaelmas and having roast goose!
To make a traditional roast goose, you will need lots of interesting ingredients. So don't worry, if you can't find some of these, we have offered substitutions. You will need 1 goose, 6 to 9 pounds. If you can't find a goose, you can substitute duck, just adjust your cook times accordingly. 1 to 2 quinces. If you can't find quinces, we couldn't find quinces, you can substitute with 1 to 2 crab apples or a small sour apple. 1 to 2 pears. 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley. 3 teaspoons each of sage, hyssop, you can substitute dried lavender, and savory, you can substitute thyme. 2 cloves of garlic, chopped. 20 to 30 grapes, white or red. 1 small onion, chopped. 2 cups of stock from meat or poultry. 1/4 cup red wine. 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar. 3 lightly toasted slices of bread with the crust removed. Nope. 1/4 teaspoon each of galingale, also called Thai ginger. You can also substitute conventional Chinese ginger. Cinnamon, mace. If you can't find that, you can substitute nutmeg. Cloves, cubebs, which is also called Java pepper. If you can't find that, you can substitute either allspice berries or black pepper or Szechuan pepper. Plus salt to taste. The neck and giblets of the goose.
Make sure that your goose is completely thawed, rinsed, and dried. Double check that you have removed the bag from the inside containing the neck and the giblets. We're going to set those aside and use them later for sauce. Preheat your oven to 390 degrees.
Sprinkle the inside of the goose well with salt. Wait 20 minutes and then wipe it clean. Then remember to wash your hands.
Now you peel and core your apples and pears and cut them into small pieces.
If you are able to find quinces, congratulations. Now you will need to boil them for 1 hour before you peel and core them. Now mix in your herbs, garlic, and grapes.
Okay, now stuff your goose.
So undignified. I don't know if you can tell, we don't stuff a lot of goose around here.
Put more grapes in that goose.
Said no one ever.
Goose flap. If you want to be authentic, you can sew up the cavity. Otherwise, just tuck in the tail flap as securely as you can.
Place your goose on a rack in a roasting pan. Make sure to baste your goose frequently. Cooking time is approximately 15 minutes per pound, plus an additional 20 minutes.
Add the neck, giblets, and stock to a boiling pot. Simmer for 2 hours and strain. Okay, our goose is nearly cooked, so it's time to make the sauce.
Remove some of the goose grease from the roasting pan and saute your onions in it. Now add your strained stock, red wine, and bread, and simmer until it thickens. Next, remove the stuffing from the goose.
That's my job.
That's your job.
The skull goes in here.
All goes in there. Despite the mildly horrifying visual, it smells delicious.
Oh, there's another grape. What if we leave some of it in?
Oh, thank God. Now you'll cover the goose with tin foil, shiny side in, and reduce the temperature to 250 to keep it warm. So we've added the stuffing to our stock. Now we're gonna add our red wine vinegar and all our spices and our salt and bring it to a boil. Once you bring it to a boil, if it looks too thin, you can add more bread. If it looks too thick, you can add more red wine. Once the sauce has reached a boil, you can remove it from the heat. Remove the goose from the oven and allow to rest for 10 minutes.
Oh, that looks good.
Richard II's cooks indicated that it should be cut up into pieces and deboned, but we just love the presentation whole.
Looks so much better this way.
You ready?
Let's dive in for a prosperous year. I love the sauce. She ain't much to look at, but she sure tastes good.
That is great.
It's really good.
That is really good.
You guys, I know what that sauce looks like, but it is so good.
You gotta trust us on this one.
Medieval cooks loved so much fruit and so much sweetness, but this fruit isn't really very sweet. That's so smart of them to say that you should go for sour apples and less sweet pears. And if you had a quince, I bet that would be dynamite. I'm gonna eat a blackberry. Not today, Satan. So we will put the complete recipe plus a recipe for bannock cake in the description below.
You know, one of the things that I find most moving about the research that we did about Michaelmas was how people of many faiths find meaning in their contemporary lives in the parable of St. Michael, and how it gives them courage to face their personal demons both internally and externally. And so, in the spirit of Michaelmas, a toast. Let us remind ourselves of the strength that we need to find the courage to defeat our demons and to let hope prevail.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy Michaelmas, everybody.
Merry Michaelmas to all.
Goose.